Welcome once again, my good students, to this class. We are going to be having a look at the topic note extension methods. Note extension methods. The musical notes, as you have known, has different symbols, and each of the notes, they have their determined beats and values. And in music, many times when we sing or when we play on the instrument, we tend to play some of these notes and values that are not directly defined by a particular musical note, as the case may be. And so that now leads us to how do we now go about to create a beat that we cannot tie to a particular musical note. So that brings us to note extension method. How do we extend the notes such that at the end of the day we can get the required beats that we want? Beats like 3 beats, like 7 beats, like 9 beats, and so on and so forth. So now first let's look at the definition of what we are looking at this lesson: note extension methods. Note extension methods will refer to the methods of extending the beats of musical notes, just like I said at the introduction. So we are going to look at the various methods that we can use to extend musical notes now, and that will bring us to the types of note extension methods, the type of extension methods we can use. For this lesson, we are going to be looking at 4 types. So let's start by looking at the first one, which is a tie. And then thereafter, we are going to look at the next one, which is a slur. The third, dotted notes, and finally, beaming and groupings. Beaming and groupings. Okay. Now we are going to go straight into these various methods and see their uniqueness and their peculiarities, and I hope you are following me because I'm going to be testing you during the course of the lesson. Now let's take the first one, which is a tie. Now the tie in music, actually by definition, is a curved line that joins 2 or more notes of the same pitch. The tie is a curved line that joins 2 or more notes of the same pitch. What that means is that for a musical note that the notes are on the same line or space on the staff, when you get a curved line that links them up, that line is referred to as a tie. Now the curved line could curve pointing downward, or it could curve pointing upward. Doesn't really matter. Okay, that shows it is a tie. Now we equally have some other kind of notes, such that the notes are placed in such a way that they cut across different measures or different bars. Okay, it doesn't really matter whether the notes are within a measure or cut across a measure, as long as the curved line, the tie, is linking them, it goes for a tie. Now the next one, which is a slur, is a little different from that of a tie. A slur is a curved line joining 2 or more notes of different pitches. Now you can get 2 or more notes as long as they are not of the same pitch. What that means, again, that their placement on the staff is not on the same line or space. Then that curved line that joins them together shows that it is a slur. And in performing them, just as you have in the tie and on the slur, you play the first note and you link it to the other. If you are singing, you are going to sing the first note and add the value of the beat of the first note. You add it to the other. You sing both of them with the same duration. Their total duration is what you are going to perform. In playing, you do the same. Okay, and then if you are linking them up, it must be very smooth. For notes that are joined by a slur, what that means is that in playing them is very smooth. We don't break in between the note, we don't create any break at all. Okay, we have different types of ways we can represent slurs. Sometimes we have these notes, more than one note, several notes, just like I said. As long as we have this curved line that goes, that links them up, it can be a group of notes underneath the curved line. It doesn't really matter, as long as when you look at the first note and you look at the last note and you see the other notes in between and they are on different lines or spaces, that shows it is a slur. Now, like we have it in the tie, the slur curve, the curved line could be pointing upward or it could be pointing downward. It is a slur. Now let's take the third one, which is the dotted notes. Dotted notes. Okay, dotted notes, this refers to a dot that is placed after a note, and what that means is that the dot will add half the value of the note to the note. It will add half the value of the note to the note. Now the other form of dotted note is the double dotted notes. What this means is that we have two dots added to a note. Unlike in a dotted note, we just have one dot, but in a double dotted notes, we have two dots. Now for that of the two dots, the first dot will add half the value of the note to the note. The second dot will add half the value of the first dot. So by expression, if we are looking at the dotted note, if we have a note like the minim, the half note. Now of course, by beat, the minim has 2 beats. Therefore the dot itself, which is half of 2, will now be 1. So the value of the dotted note therefore will be 3. So if we want to further simplify the dotted half note, that will give us the half note now tied now to the crochet or the quarter note. So because the dot in itself, since it has a value that is equal to half of the note, that means the quarter note has now taken the place of that dot. The dot is the same as the quarter note as long as it is placed by a half note. Okay, and it can further be expressed again to mean that the minim, which consists of 2 quarter notes, can be added again to another quarter note, which gives us 3 quarter notes, and then we have 3 beats. So now let's go to the double dotted notes. The first dot we add the value of the note, like I said, while the second dot we add the value of the first dot. So if we have something like this, where we have another half note, we have the double dot there, like I said. So what that means is that the first dot is going to be called a quarter note or a crochet, because that is actually what it stands for. If it's going to add half of the half note will give us a quarter note, and then the second dot, which is half of the quarter note, will be the 8th note. And so if the quarter note therefore is 2 beats, that means if the half note is 2 beats, the quarter note will be 1 beat, and then the 8th note will now become half beat. So we can add all of them up, that will give us 3.5. Okay, so that's how we extend. And so if we are going to perform, we just we are getting a 3.5 beat by adding a double dot to a half note. Okay, so we have other expressions that we can always expand them. Sometimes it's possible to use a tie to show that the notes are extending on the staff. At other times, you can just put a dot or a double dot, as the case may be, to show the extension of the notes. So if it's a double dot, as we can see here, we see the note, and then the note that is represented by the first dot, as in the case of the minim or the half note. Then the note represented by the first dot this time is the crochet or the quarter note, while the second dot is represented by the eighth note or the quiver. Now it's possible to equally have a triple dot, but just take note of that no matter the dots you are adding after a note, it keeps adding half the value of the previous dot or the note, as the case may be. So just to have a recap of what we have done so far, now can you tell me the type of extension methods we use in music? What is the first one? Can you remember? A tie. Correct. Okay, what about the second one we just looked at? The second one, do you get that? It's a slur. Yes, it's a slur. And then the third one we have just looked at now, that is the dotted notes. The dotted note. Now we are looking at the double dotted note, which we have just rounded off. So like I said, we have the double dotted notes, and every time you have a dot before a note, the dot is adding half the value of the note. If it has a double dot, the second dot will add half the value of the first dot. Now let's look at the fourth one, or the final one in this lesson, which is beaming. Now notes which are lesser than the quarter notes, I'm referring now to the 8th note or the 16th note, notes that have the flags or the tails. Now when their tails are joined together, their tails are connected together, we refer to it as beaming. Okay, so it is done in such a way that the advantage is that it makes it easier to read music. Unlike when we have many of these 8th notes or 16th notes, I'm referring now to the quiver or the semi-quivers, and then you just have them on the staff. So when you join the tails together, it forms a beam, and then it can easily be read. And in performing them, it's not difficult for us to perform them. Okay, so we have examples like that of the quiver, and then the tails are joined, so it looks like what you are seeing now. And then the semi-quiver, you can see the two beam representing the two tails of the 4 semi-quiver notes we have there. And then the final one, there is the semi-quiver. We have 2 semi-quivers and the quiver, and then the first beam showing the first tail or the first flag, and then the second beam for joining those other 2 notes shows the semi-quiver. Now the grouping has to do with the rules that governs beaming. When we are beaming, remember, we have weak beats, we have strong beats. Of course, the first beat of every song is a strong beat. In most cases, for a complete measure, is a strong beat, then followed by a weak beat, followed by a strong beat, depending on the time signature. So we have rules that govern the beaming of notes together, but for this lesson we are not going to look into that. So we're just going to stop at beaming, and the fact that when we are beaming notes, we actually work with notes that are that are less than the crotchets, the quarter notes, and then we just join their tails, and it's easier to read. And when we are performing those notes, it's easier equally to perform. So this is what we are going to be looking at. This is the size of our lesson. Now before I let you go, I have an assignment for you. I want you to take down this assignment, take down these questions, and do it. Put them on your notes and let me have a look at them, and I want to be sure how you have done so far in this class, I want to believe that you have understood all that has been taught in this lesson. So take down the assignment, answer them in your notes, and let me have them and see how far and how well you have understood the lesson. I'm going to see you next time when we are going to have another topic that we are going to be looking into. See you and bye bye.